My name is Stephanie Hess, and this is Dexter Thomas, and we are both current NACM board members. I got the brainchild for this session from a friend of mine who is on another association board. And they were talking a little bit about what they do to try to groom new board members and get the word out and talk about how much fun things are being on the board. So we thought we would give this a shot. So here we are to talk a little bit about what it means to be on the NACM board, and hopefully you will all be so excited that you will run right out and put in your application next year, because we'll talk about the process. But do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yes. One of the interesting things about NACM is that I see some familiar faces here. I see name tags who have been on phone calls. I see smiles about people who want to be involved. So I would start with the question, why did you make it to this special interest group today? There's something about NACM that brought you here that you might want to go a little further. And since we have such a small crowd, and I mean, not in a bad way, but I think I would like to get a little personal too. Russ, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, wait, I've got a mic for you, Russ.
Just so everybody knows who's in the room here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Russell Brown with the Cleveland Municipal Court Administrator. And why am I here? I actually participated in the nomination committee this year and was really impressed by the candidates, and I thought I'd learn a little bit more about the process.
Thanks. I'm Matthew Pendy from the Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk's Office in Columbus, Ohio. I think the main reason I'm here is I just went through the ICM Fellows, and I think I could potentially have some more time after going through that program. I feel kind of empty at work. I know that's my boss isn't here, so but that'd be something I would say. I could give it some more time. I feel like after doing something like that, I could do more.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Henderson. I'm with the Midvale City Justice Court out of Salt Lake City, Utah, and I just want to get more involved. This is my second year with NACM, and I've tried to get on some of the phone calls. I haven't always gotten on all of them, and just want to do more.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Sunikawa from Seattle, Washington, Seattle Municipal Court. Was on nominations committee last year, helped Dexter get his position on the board this year. Doing my fellows this year, finishing my master's in public administration this year. On Joint Technology Committee with Kevin, very active in NACM, very active in half the committees that are going on. So was going to throw my name in the hat this year, but just with fellows and masters, there's just not enough time. So plan to put my name in for this next year.
There you go.
Good afternoon. My name is William Hutchings, 15th Judicial Circuit Court Administration in Palm Beach County. This is my first NACM experience. Welcome. And I know, thank you. I've heard a lot of great things about it from my own colleagues back in Palm Beach County, but we're not involved, so it's about time.
Great.
I'm Jeff Chappell, and I am now going to be on the board. I applied this year and was selected for the slate. I served my state association for 6 years. I have a couple more to finish out, but obviously the next progression was the NACM board, so I applied, and thank you for the ones that, oh, he left already, that served on the committee.
My name is Teresa Ewing. I am a graduate of the Fellows Program in 2012. I am getting my master's degree right now, but I have been a NACM member for over 16 years.
Great.
And in those 16 years, I have always been doing other things and not able to. And now I have Yolanda, who is a Seattle Municipal Court, who has been harassing me for quite a few years to get involved. And so I figured I'd come and find out what the actual time commitments are and see what's really involved, because I've heard there's lots, and I don't know that I have any time at the moment.
Hi, my name's Liz Rampo. I'm from the Lane County Circuit Court in Eugene, Oregon. I've been with court management for 20 years and with NACM for about that same period of time, and have just never been involved at all. So I'm really here out of curiosity to see what it is that board members do to become board members and what that takes. But I'm also interested in just sort of becoming involved in a committee. I just recently launched e-court in our court in Oregon.
Congratulations.
And now I feel like I'm who is saying they need
time.
I've got time. I've got time to do more. So
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tricia Batley, and I'm from the Richmond City Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court in Richmond, Virginia. This is actually my first conference, even though I've been a NACM member for about 4 years. I know I'm going to be involved in one of the committees.
Yay!
Yay! But like so many of them, I just kind of wanted to find out what the commitment was, what was actually involved, and so forth. And we actually don't have a lot of Virginia representatives, so I figured, hey, why not?
Perfect. Great.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Kevin Bowling, and I'm part of NACM's Shameless Marketing Division. I spent time on the board. I'm a past president, and I'm constantly trolling for new recruits and trying to look for good talent. I've tried to get some folks from Michigan. We've got a new person from Michigan applying, and I just had to come here today for harassment value for Stephanie.
So now everyone is going to be running away from you when they see you coming.
I'm Dave Walsh, and I've been running away from Kevin for years. I've been a NACM member since 1989, so I've been around a long time. I'm a fellow. I've been heavily involved at the state level, running the conference, involved in the state organizations. I've never really gotten involved in NACM, even though I've come to the conference many, many times through the years. So I thought I'd come today and get a little bit more information and hopefully get Kevin off my back.
There you go. Whatever it takes, right?
Whatever it takes. Hi, I'm John Olivier. I'm clerk of the Louisiana Supreme Court. I'm also president of the National Conference of Appellate Court Clerks. And I'm sort of just trying to see what the process is. I've been a member of NACM probably since 1986, I think, 85, 86, somewhere in there. I've been at the court 30 years, and so we sort of started at the same time. And, you know, and I know what you're going to do next year, so we'll see. I'll be finishing my presidency, and I'll have some time left, too.
I
Maybe.
see a theme here. Donate some time, huh?
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Lovelace from Hamilton, Ohio, and I was the 6th president of our lovely association, and I've been a member of NACM for 30 years and was a member of the small court administrators group prior to that, NACA. And NACA and NATCA merged to form NACM. So I've been around the block a couple of times. With Paul.
That's at NACM she's talking about. My name is Paul Burke. I'm a state court administrator from Boston, Massachusetts. I've worked for the court system for 40 plus years. As far as NACM is concerned, been there, done that. I am one of the past presidents as well. So I came here today because I didn't want to disturb Dexter's continuing slate. He's kicked me out of the hospitality suite the last 2 nights. I figured I'd give him the opportunity to kick me out of this session here today.
There you go.
Hi, my name is David Slayton, and I came because I'm thinking about running for the board next year. I'm the immediate past president of NACM, and I'm just here. I'm just excited to see there's a lot of people in this room. I was the chair of the nominations committee this year, and we had some outstanding candidates, one of whom is here in the room with you. And I'm hopeful that all of you will consider doing the same next year when Michelle will be the chair of the nominations committee.
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Guerra from Los Angeles Superior Court. I have 4 years now as a manager and 2 years as a NACM member. And I had the opportunity to assist with the first-time attendees reception.
Got
Enjoyed
roped
that a lot.
into assisting.
Voluntold, I think. Was
Yeah,
the
there you
word.
go.
Okay. So I'm just curious to know, the role of the board members and just get a better understanding about what you guys do.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Edie Pearman. I'm also from LA Superior Court. I've been with the courts for 33 years, and I participated many years ago on the board of the California Clerks Municipal Association, and that broke up after we became Superior Court, all of us. And I also was, what was the word again that they used for us? Voluntold, and I assisted with the first-time attendees, and it was really fun. And we just wanted to see what it really entails, and we sort of dabbled a little bit into the membership, but it was sort of tough this year. We were all moved around a lot in LA, so we'd like to see what more we can do.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. And we really, you know, this is, it's a SIG, so we really want this to be informal, and we really want to have a lot of discussion back and forth. We do have some slides that will kind of guide our conversation along, but please, if there are questions, if there's anything that we say, you know, we are all about the alphabet soup, so if we start using a bunch of acronyms that you don't understand, just put your hand up and we'll slow down a little bit and explain those to you. One of the first things that we wanted to do, I lost the clicker already. One of the first things that we wanted to do was talk a little bit about, well, we can skip the agenda. Okay, why NACM? And I thought it would be helpful if Dexter and I both kind of told a little bit about why we decided to get involved with NACM. This is a picture of our current board that was taken last July. From my standpoint, I have been working for the courts my entire career. Right out of college, I started working for the courts. And it was kind of one of those logical progressions for me. I kind of worked my way up in the court and got into a management level position, and that's when I started becoming more involved with NACM. I was fortunate enough that I had people in my court that said, oh, hey, you know, you really need to get on this committee or that committee. I met David Slayton, and he kind of brought me along and gave me some projects to do on committees, and the rest was kind of history. But for me, it really has been so gratifying because you know, I'm from Ohio. We have a relatively small state. I worked for it's big for Ohio, but it was a relatively small court. We had 17 judges, so compared to LA, I mean, it's very small, but it's pretty big for Ohio. We had 17 judges. So I felt like I had done pretty much everything that I could do there, and then I moved on to my current position and just really felt like I could contribute more on a larger scale, and it's been so gratifying for me to learn more about what's going on across the country. So not only am I able to give back to NACM, but it really has enriched my career, and I'm able to bring things back to my home state and ideas and things that I learned from you all here at NACM. So that's been really, really valuable to me as well. So it's kind of both ends of the spectrum. I'm giving to NACM, but NACM is also really giving back to me too.
And for me, the story is a little different. I worked in the courts for about 2 or 3 years, and I decided to leave the courts and go into county government. And so I worked in county government for several years. And then I got a phone call from a department that I was working with, which is where I work right now, is the Maricopa County Justice Courts. And they said, you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I was like, no, not really. But my person lady said, sounds like a good opportunity. So I've really only been in NACM for 3 years now. I heard a lot of people in this room say, well, I've been involved, or I just got involved the last couple of years. The one key thing about being in NACM and being involved is be involved. You know, I went to that first conference and I was excited. And I'll tell you what happened to me, and this is why I'm on the board now. I didn't know anybody. I went to the website and I saw they were having a conference. And I went to my boss and said, hey, can I go to this? He said, sure. And I went to my first conference 3 years ago, and I've been coming ever since. But at my first conference, I met someone like Kevin. I met Paul, you know, and I met others who just embraced me and like, where are you from? And I was like, from Phoenix, and I'm here by myself. And no, you're not. You're here with everybody else. And so I was just brought in. And then I realized this was going to be a profession for me. And when I wanted to be a part of the premier organization for court management, it was NACM. And then the choice became easy. And then it was just doing what I do, meet, greet. And you know, the thing about NACM was they allowed me to who I am to be who I am. You know, we're all different in our roles, and we're all different in what we bring to the table. And so they allowed me to be Dexter. And I like that, you know, and so it was exciting. Just like a bunch of you have talked about, I feel like I have a little more time too, because I just finished my fellows. I started a new job 6 months ago within my own court, but it is a career for me now. I've become a director in my court, and I'm doing a lot of things. And so I see a lot of familiar faces. And so when you talk, and I heard people mention this one thing about, I want to find out more, and I want to see what else I can do. The thing about NACM is, and the great thing about NACM is, we take what you want to give. All you have to have is a giving heart, the willingness to be a part of it. I heard a lot of you talk about the phone calls, and you've been on a couple, and we can't make all the phone calls. That's a reality. If you look at our calendar, there's phone calls, 3 or 4 phone calls every week. We all have day jobs, we all have lives, we realize that. But will you make the attempt to get on some phone calls? Will you make the attempt to be a part of it? And as long as you come with the right attitude and the right heart, then you're in the right place. And so that's what I would say about NACM. And that's why I'd say, why NACM? Because if you're looking personally for a career and those who can help you develop your professional development in certain ways that you can't even think about and you can't even always measure. You know, we'd like to think that you can always put it on paper, but sometimes it's not always on paper because NACM's done a lot of that, and we continue to do that. We have the new core. We have the national agenda, and people have put a lot of work in that. But here's the interesting thing about them. They're just on paper. It's up to you guys in the room to live it, to make it breathe, to make it what it is. You know, the document is there, but it's just a document. You can just sit it on the shelf, or you can exemplify it, and that's what NACM allows you to do.
And a lot of you were talking about it. I just want to know more about what NACM is, and I think a couple of you alluded to maybe having heard stories about the workload. And we do work hard, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I have had the most fun at these board meetings and at the conferences because, you know, we work hard, but we're together for a lot of hours each day, and we really become close friends. And so I thought this next slide kind of illustrates that a little bit. So this is our board meeting dinner. We have an all-day board meeting this Saturday before the annual conference. And so we were all together all day on Saturday, and then we went out to eat together. And we do a little roast, and we have a little fun. And Michelle, our current president, got us all their sun stashes, but they're sunglasses that are different characters and that kind of stuff. And so this is all of us with our sun stashes on. So we do have a lot of fun. So it really is a balance. There's a lot of work, but we have a lot of fun. And I have made lifelong friends in this organization and being on the board and people that I've been able to get to know. And there are so many people on the board that I call in my regular job and say, oh, hey, I remember you talked about X, Y, and Z. And so I call and say, I need help with this. And so I'm able to kind of weave both NACM and my day job together. Oh, we're falling apart pretty seamlessly. So I just wanted to show that we do have some fun, too.
And before Stephanie leaves the slide, I wanted to tell you what kind of glasses she got. Go ahead, Steph. Tell them.
No.
Tell them. David, what kind of glasses did you get?
Because he's from Texas. Yep.
I'll tell you, she got the Wonder Woman glasses. Because not only is she wonderful, but Steph is very organized. She's very on top of things, and she's always got it going. Always got it going. Steph keeps it going. She keeps it moving. And it's wonderful that she can do that. And it's funny because, remember I talked to you about they let my personality come out. I have a little football helmet with a mask because I got the Team Player Award. And so it's just, that's what NACM does. So.
Yep, it's great. We've had all kinds of fun. So let's talk a little bit about the structure. So we've got 10 directors. If you were in the business meeting yesterday, you heard that we changed our bylaws a little bit. In the past, we've had designated positions for rural courts and large courts and so on and so forth, but we've gotten rid of the director titles. And so now we just have 10 directors on the board, which I think will help us in filling those slots as well. And then we have 5 officers. We have the secretary-treasurer. Let's see if I can remember them all. Secretary-treasurer, vice president, president-elect, president, and then immediate past president. So 5 officers. So the 5 officers have their own conference calls and their own meetings, and that structure was put together that way just because if there's something that comes up that a decision needs to be made on really quickly, it's really hard to get 15 people on the phone or in the same place together to make a decision, but it's much more easy to get just 5 people and make that quick decision and get on with it. So the officers do kind of that triage a little bit, and then the board, we get together for conference calls as a board, and then we have 3 in-person meetings each year. We meet once before the mid-year conference, and our mid-year conference is in February each year. And then we meet twice at the annual meeting. We meet the Saturday before the annual conference, and then immediately at the end of the annual conference. So on Thursday, we'll meet Thursday afternoon. After everyone else goes home, we'll meet for a couple of hours Thursday afternoon. And then we have a fall board meeting, usually in October or November each year. And that's where we get together and we take a long weekend. So the officers meet on Friday and then the board meets Saturday and Sunday. And it really gives us an opportunity to get a lot of work done. We do some strategic planning, we do some team building kind of exercises. So it's really beneficial. As far as in-person meetings, it's not a huge time commitment. It's just It's billed as 4 meetings a year, but it's really only three separate occasions that we get together. And then we have conference calls. We've talked a lot about conference calls. So we do have a lot of conference calls. The board, I think, meets by as a full board every other month, and then the officers meet on the other month. And then we've got all of our committees and our subcommittees that are filling in between, and those meet usually monthly. Sometimes subcommittees will meet a little bit more often if there's a pressing matter that they're working on and they're trying to get something done really quickly. They might meet a little bit more often, but usually it's once a month. Do you want to talk a little bit about the committees?
Yes, I do. I'm the vice chair of the membership committee, but we have several committees. And so we changed the name of one. It used to be called planning. It's hopefully going to be called governance. Is that correct, David? It'll be called the governance committee. We have the membership committee. And why am I drawing a blank right now?
Conference development.
Conference development.
Finance.
Finance. And there's one more. Communications, yes. Thank you. See, the audience is there. Within those, though, and the reason, I don't so much get caught up in all the different titles, because actually all the committees cross. I think somebody else said, well, I was on this one and I kind of was over here, because they kind of all cross. Because when you're planning a conference, say the conference committee, well, they'll contact the membership committee and say, well, what are we going to do on ECP, or what are we doing with the first-time attendees, or what are we doing for the social event? And so and membership says, well, we got this from the members and these kind of ideals. And just so it's all kind of intertwined, but they're separate committees. And the reason I find that very interesting is that it allows you to get on those calls and figure out what's your niche, what interests you, what sparks your attention. And so I would implore all of you to just pick up the line, dial in to all the calls. And if you get on enough of them, a few minutes here and there, something's going to spark your interest. They're going to raise a topic, and I'd like for you two to share how it happened to you. I know you were kind of voluntold, but you guys have been on calls. I've heard you on calls, and you've had a lot of good input, and it's worked out well.
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
And the only reason I put you on the spot because I can tell you about it, but you guys have experienced it, the calls.
Speaking for myself, Michelle Oken, the current president, is my boss. So I got to see firsthand everything she went through over the past year, and as demanding as it was, I think it was very fulfilling for her. And I just thought it was interesting, all the things that she was involved with, all the traveling she did, and every time she came back from a conference, she was just really excited and shared a lot about what she did. So I've been submerged in it for the past year.
And then I got one more for you, because you guys did a wonderful job, and I want to say thank you. But the ECP and the first-time attendee function, was it everything you thought it was going to be when you were planning it?
Yeah, actually, we got more people than I expected, and there was a lot of socializing happening that no one paid attention to us. I was like, good, you guys did all the work. So, yeah, it was a good experience.
Right, thank you.
We couldn't get them to quiet down.
Right. They were having too much fun.
So,
are there any other folks?
Oh, we got a question right here.
So how do you find out when the calls are going to be, what the numbers are going to be? Oh, Michelle, I'm loud. Trust me.
well, we're recording, so if you could just.
Oh. So if you do want to find out about, seeing where you could plug in possibly, where do you get the information on the website as to what the phone numbers are, when the committees are meeting, and all that good stuff?
I have a mic. That's a great question. So all of you in this room are NACM members. And so when you go to the NACM website, you can either go through your personal login ID, and then you can pull up Committee Corner. And then the Committee Corner on the website, which is up on the right-hand side, about a third of the way down, if you click on that, all the committees will come up. And if you go ahead and click on the committee that interests you,
Jeff's got it up right now.
He's got a visual. And so if you click on it, all the committees come up. If you click on the committee link, what it'll take you to is their schedule of times of calls. It'll also take you something very important, because people talked about they can't make all the calls. The committee minutes from the previous calls are online as well. And not just, this is NACM, so it's not just last month. We probably have the last, I'll hit on one, about 3 or 4 years on there. So you can find out what committees have done over time. So you can get a historical perspective. Because there'll be people on the call, and we put people on the spot like Kevin. Kevin, can you tell us how we got to, or David, well, how did we get somewhere? And they remind us of where we're at when we're talking about certain things or moving in a certain direction. Go ahead, David.
Oh, thank you. So, and another thing that you can do is if you're going to be around tomorrow morning, which I hope you are, most of our committees are meeting tomorrow morning. The big ones are meeting tomorrow morning. So I encourage you to attend the committee meetings. You can sit in and let them know that you're interested, and that way they'll put you on the list, and that way you'll get an email that announces the meeting schedule, and it'll give you an agenda with the call-in information and everything too. But even if you don't get on the list, when you go to the Committee Corner webpage, if you click on one of their agendas, the call-in information is on there. The call-in information is the same every time. We have a NACM conference call line. We can all recite it in our sleep now. But yeah, so you can hop on any of the calls that way as well. That was a really good question. One of the things that we're talking about doing as well as this fall, we'll give you a few weeks after you get home, but we're planning on doing a marketing email that we'll send out, and it will be solely focused on committee service. And so it'll give you a link where you can fill out a form and put down what you're interested in doing, and then we'll get you added to the list that way too.
Yeah. And when we talk about committees, there's other things, not just committees, that we always need volunteers or people involved with. That court manager, people publish that, people write articles. So even if you're not interested in getting on a committee, do you have a topic you want to write about, you want to talk about? We're always looking for people to submit their ideas. What's going on in your court? I'm sure we'd love to hear your experience about just bringing up e-file. I'm serious though, because what you've done, this neighborhood, this network, this management, this association, people are either trying to get there, they're in the middle of it, and so you have some valuable experience that you could share by just writing a brief article and then maybe even putting yourself out there as a contact because you've lived it. You know, that experience is valuable. So I would call on you to share that information in one of our upcoming articles. I really would. You know, just like Matt, you just talked about your ICM Fellows experience and you just finished. Well, Jeff just talked about I'm getting ready to do it. There may be others thinking of doing it. Once again, a chance to write a small article. Are you thinking about the Fellows Program? Here's my experience. I graduated in 2015, and let me tell you, it was great. And just sharing that with other members.
Or even taking your paper and turning it into an article, you know, kind of summarizing it in an article for the court manager might be an idea as well. Yeah. We also have the Court Express, which is our newsletter that comes out too. So it might not be something where you want to do a huge long article like you would for the court manager. If you'd rather do something on a smaller scale, we could do articles in the Court Express too. And so I hope that all of you as members are getting all of these publications, the court manager, the Court Express. If writing is your forte, you know, Dexter mentioned a little bit earlier about there's something for everyone. So you might not be a people person like Dexter is. Maybe you like to write. Maybe that's more of your forte. The Communications Committee has responsibility for the court manager, the Court Express, and also publishing all of our guides. So that might be an option as well. And the guides are usually written by committee. So it's not like we would just say, okay, here's a guide, go write it, and you're sitting out there by yourself. It's usually a committee of people, and they break it up into chapters or subject area. So it's really a very, very much a team effort, and that's a way that you could kind of tap into those skills too, if that's something that you like a little bit more.
And she just sparked a couple big projects that we have going on this year that may spark your interest. One is about the association itself. I don't know if you guys heard Stephanie mention, we're talking about a new strategic agenda for NACM itself. Not for us, but for NACM as an organization. It's going to be huge. If you have any ideas, any thoughts, what that future should look like, you should get on those calls. We are in the infinite stage, infancy stage of that. We've only had one call, and it was really an introductory call. So the work hasn't even started. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, please, I would ask you to get on that call. If you have artistic talents or any kind of talent, or you're into social media, we're trying to get there. We're talking about revamping our website, making it more user-friendly. I don't know what that means to the user group. And so if you have ideas about that, as we start to engage in what the next iteration of the website should look like, what should it do for you? Let us know. Or if it's not doing something for you, provide that feedback as well. Because we're about to engage in upgrading the website as well. So those are two projects that really haven't even started yet, but we're looking for talent. We're looking for people in the organization to provide some input about those things. So.
And I know if any of you have been on the conference calls, some of them can be very well attended. So, you know, when you're logging into the call and you hear all these people logging in and there's, you know, 20 or 30 people on the call, for someone like me who's very much an introvert, it can be a little intimidating. So, you know, feel free if you even want to log onto the call and don't announce yourself. You're welcome to lurk in the background. That's okay if you just want to hear what's going on. You can just listen to what's going on, and then if there's a subcommittee that's working, maybe you feel more comfortable on a subcommittee call where there's only 5 or 6 people, and that might be a better way to kind of get into it if you're more introverted like I am, and that might be something that you feel more comfortable doing. All you have to do is reach out to that committee chair, and all of our contact information is on the website as well, and just let them know that you're interested in participating in the subcommittee, and they can get you on the subcommittee call agenda. So that's an option as well. Let's talk a little bit about the application and nomination process. So once you've been able to join committees and, you know, take on little projects here and there and get a flavor for the work that NACM is doing and get to know some of the people and get a little bit more comfortable, if you get to a point where you feel like you want to apply for the board, there will be an email blast that will come out in the spring. It always comes out in the spring, I think April-ish, maybe. April or May?
Comes out with it's required to be out by the mid-year conference, yes. So in February.
So early spring, late winter. So look for that email blast, and it'll be a link to the application. There's a quick application. It's not lengthy. We ask for a little blurb that talks a little bit about your committee service so that we can see what you have done with NACM in the past to kind of help us gauge where your strengths are and where we might fit you into the current board. And then we ask for your resume and your experience in the court world, and that's pretty much it. And once all of those applications are received, then we go through an interview process. Do you want to talk a little bit about that,
sure.
David?
I'd be happy to. The NACM bylaws, which you all voted on yesterday, provide for a nominations committee that's a standing. It's a permanent committee of NACM. It's chaired by the immediate past president and 4 other regular members of NACM who are appointed by the president. And so basically, on Sunday of the conference, the nominations committee chooses who to interview from the applications and goes through like our interviews this year were 30 minutes each, sometimes 40 minutes each, depending on how it worked out. And basically that nominations committee then makes a recommendation, as you saw me do yesterday, of a slate to fill the positions that are open. Obviously that's the slate from the nominations committee. There can be nominations from the floor. In the history of NACM, that hasn't happened very many times. Generally, the membership has respected and really appreciated the nominations interview process, but there have been times where there have been nominations from the floor, and then, of course, depending on whether there's a contested election or not, then there's actually an election, and that's the process.
So it's relatively painless.
I would say so.
Yes. Any questions about anything that we've covered so far, committees, or? I know we kind of blew through the committees really quickly. It's hard to, I mean, we could take the entire hour just talking about the committees and the work that the committees are doing. So I do encourage you to go to the committee web pages. Like Dexter said, read through some of the minutes, and that'll really give you a good flavor for what some of the committees are doing. Duties, we talked a little bit about this already. The time commitment involved as far as in-person meetings and telephone conferences. And then, you know, we do have a duty as a board as a whole for the management of the association. You know, we have a bank account, and we have to be really responsible with our finances, planning the conferences and making sure that conferences have something for everyone, that they're in a, you know, everything from the location, is the location somewhere that people are going to want to go to, all the way to, you know, what SIG sessions are we going to have. So there's a lot of responsibilities for the board, not only just what you see in the committees, but also kind of looking beyond that in the contracts and the finances and all that kind of stuff. So when you think about the management of the nonprofit, there's a lot of responsibilities there too. We do contract with the National Center for State Courts. I'm sure you've seen their staff around all week. They serve as our secretariat. So they do a lot of the nuts and bolts work for us, you know, where they pay all the bills and do all the invoicing and so on and so forth. But as a board, we're still responsible for knowing what they're doing. We review the credit card statement to make sure that there aren't any charges on there that look strange, and we sit down as a board and we go over the budget and we look and see how much we spent this year and how much we made this year, and then project what we're going to do for next year. So we really do kind of dig in and roll up our sleeves and get down in the weeds a little bit on the management of the association.
And so she hit on a key point, because I know you guys brought up about the time commitment. It's not as much time as you think, but there is some time involved. And I'll give you an example. Everybody's here enjoying the conference. Well, we've already put out the call for proposals for February's conference. So when you talk about the time commitment is time, but we're always looking forward, always looking forward. So you guys are here enjoying it now. We're already thinking about February. And really, we've had conversations about February and where we're going and what we're doing and planning. So when we talk about time commitment, it's a lot of planning time. Planning the next conference, planning the next meeting, planning the next conversation, planning the next strategic agenda. So it's a forward kind of capsule where you're looking this way. When we get here, the work for this is done. I mean, there's some things we do administratively, as you said, to protect the association and the nonprofit and stuff like that, making sure your stays in the hotel, but the big bulk of the work is done. You know, so we're always thinking about what's the next step, where's the next plateau, where we're trying to go. So that's where the time commitment comes in. And that being said, too, I just put a little plug out there that the call for proposals is out there. And when you talk about committees, there are a group of individuals who get together and look at the content for these conferences that we have, and look at the content for going along with the theme of the next conference. So if that interests you as well, you could be a part of planning these sessions and planning the things that we do and having input on that way as well. So.
Or you also might consider being a presenter at a NACM conference. So take a look at the call for proposals that went out for the mid-year conference. The mid-year conference will be in February in Mobile, Alabama. So you might be interested in turning your fellows paper into a breakout session. So take a look at the call for proposals and see if it's something that you might be interested in presenting, because that would be another way that you could kind of get involved in NACM. I actually have some of Pat Dugan's business cards up here on the table. If you're interested in helping with the call, or if you're interested in serving as a speaker at one of the future NACM conferences, feel free to stop by and pick up one of her business cards and reach out to her. She would love to hear from you. She would have been here, but she's doing another session right now too.
So I'd like to just take a second to go back across the room, because I don't want anyone to leave here today without us having answered your questions or what brought you to the room. So I'd just like to go around again and just make sure if there are any more questions, any specific thing we didn't answer that you'd like a more specific answer to, or some clarity, feel free to let us know. Did anybody?
Dexter, Stephanie, you haven't been very specific as to the time commitment. I think if I were sitting out here, I mean, I think one of the things that may scare people off from applying for the board is we talk about that there's a lot of work, and indeed there is, but the question is, what is the real time commitment? And I think it would be good if each of you answered, because you're in very different roles right now. So maybe talk about what the actual time commitment you think is.
For me, being an at-large board member, just one of the 10, I'll tell you what my time commitment is now. I have one conference call a month with the membership committee. I probably sit on 2 or 3 more conference calls throughout the month. So that's 3. I'm just going to add it up for you. Then there's this couple subcommittees that I take a call. So call-wise, being on the phone, there's probably about 5 to 8 hours a month where I'm on calls. That's realistic, 5 to 8 hours in calls. Now there's some other, remember I told you we're always planning. There's things that I do behind the scenes. I'm going to be doing a mentoring project this year. I don't know how much time that will take, but when you take on things like producing the minutes, or you work with a subcommittee on, we worked on the whole thing of the restructure for, anybody here an E-Limited member? Well, we had offline conversations about that you are. See, you benefited from some of the work we did behind the scenes, and that probably took probably another 4 hours a month, 4 or 5 hours a month. So realistically, as a board member, in my position, you probably give up about 10 to 15 hours a month, easily. specifically, a good 10 to 15 hours. And I'd lean more towards the 15 hours because he can take a couple. Now, that doesn't always mean Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I live in Arizona. I'm on a different time zone, I'll be honest. I've talked to Steph. Steph's like, what you doing? I'm getting ready to get on the treadmill. Because it's 9 o'clock her time and it's 6 o'clock my time. So, I got my earpiece in and I'm starting my walk. But it's not just 8 to 5 doing your, but also in that time commitment, understand too, my boss knows where I'm at. I don't hide that I'm a part of NACM. When I take a call, at 10 o'clock in the morning in my office, everybody's clear that I put it on my calendar. It's on my Outlook. It's open. I'm transparent. We talk about transparency and accountability. I'm accountable for it, and I put it on my calendar. I don't hide that I'm doing NACM business or I'm on the phone call. That's just the cooperation I have from my court. So I just want to be clear about that too. It's not like I'm going in the court, I got to talk today. No, I put it on my Outlook so I know where I'm at and what I need to do. And that's why I say sometimes you have competing things that, I can't make that NACM call because I got to go see the presiding judge. That's a reality. But I would say a good 15 hours a month.
That's a really good point. And I hesitate to try to put an hour on it because I can't do math in my head that well. But I think that's a really good point because I think all of us, before even applying to get on the board, went to our immediate supervisor, our presiding judge, whoever it is at the top of the food chain in our court, and said, hey, this is something that I'm interested in doing. There's a time commitment involved. Are you okay with this? And then we try to be really realistic with them so that they understand that, when they come to our office, there could be a possibility I'm going to be on a NACM phone call and I'm not going to be able to help you with whatever you need right at that moment. So we really do work really closely with the folks that we report to, whether it's a supervisor or a judge, depending on the person, to make sure that they understand what the time commitment is and that they support the work in NACM. That's really, really important because I could not do this without the support of my court. Like Dexter said, they all know. All the folks that I work with are like, oh, there she goes on NACM business again, or she's on a conference call again. So they all know, and I draft some of them to help me with stuff too. I voluntold them to do stuff too. So I think that is really important to have those conversations up front. But if you start doing some committee work and you can get a little bit of a feel for how much time is involved, and then you just have to make that decision of how much time you can commit, and then have that conversation with your leadership and decide if board service is something that's going to work for you. Did you have a comment?
Just to follow up on that, Steph, two things that immediately came to mind while both of you were talking. If any of you are interested in doing this, you can talk to any prior board member or past president if you want some ideas on what's the value add. If you have to go back and talk to your presiding judge or talk to your supervisor and say, NACM's not only going to be good for me, but it's going to help the court out, we could probably, off the top of our heads, give you a list of 10, 20, 30 things that are an immediate value add to your jurisdiction. The other thing that you guys didn't touch on that I think is important is money. You can't go to meetings and conferences all the time on your court's dime or entirely out of your own pocket. And I think it's important for folks thinking about board activity to know that the NACM budget covers a good bit of the expenses, the out-of-pocket travel expenses, hotel expenses, and things like that for board members to attend and be part of the organization.
Right.
You're already volunteering your time. There's not an expectation that you're going to pay out of pocket to serve on the board as well.
Right, yeah, that's a really good point. So NACM pays for all of our board members to attend the fall board meeting. So everybody gets everything paid for, flights, hotel, incidentals, food, whatever you need for the fall board meeting. The same thing goes for the mid-year meeting. Everything is paid for. And then for the annual conference, we do what we can. The directors are all expected to get here themselves. We do pay for their registration, but we do expect them to get here themselves. And we try to provide a couple of nights lodging if the NACM budget allows it that year. But then the officers are all paid for the annual conference. So once you get into the officer track, then there's no cost.
And I'll just highlight that because I think that's what brought up I don't hide it, NACM, and the transparency and accountability. My boss supports it, and I think Kevin hit on something important. I go back, even whether I'm at a director's meeting, at this conference, I go back and talk to that about with my court about what happened. I've sent them out emails about the live streaming and reminded them. And it's through NACM that, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Russ, but we made a connection with the city of Cleveland, and we had them come to our court and see what we do. So it's sharing information. It's not just you're sitting on the board or so you're sharing information and finding what others do. Texas was using some technology we were using in Arizona, and it kind of went sideways, and people were calling David left and right. Hey, David, what's that company and what's going on and how's it working? And so it's an information sharing as well. So you're not just a board member, you're not just on the committee, but you're sharing useful information. And if you ever need any help with that, Kevin's not playing. You can reach out to people, and they'd be glad to talk to your administrators or your court leadership about the value of NACM and your involvement. So.
And speaking of transparency, we do really strive to be very transparent as a board. So some of you may have come to our candidates forum last night. All the officers that are running on the slate are open to the membership, for the membership to ask questions. We want to make sure that the membership knows the people that they're electing. So we have the candidates forum. All of our minutes to all of our meetings are available on the website. All of our board meeting minutes, all of our committee meeting minutes, everything's available on the website, all of our budget information. So it's really important to us that we're very transparent. We instituted a role of a parliamentarian a few years ago. So we've got somebody that we sent on this webinar to Robert's Rules of Order webinar to make sure that we've got somebody in our ranks on the board that is very well versed in Robert's Rules, because that's how we govern our board meetings. So there is a little bit of formality to it, but we try to be very, very transparent in everything that we do. It's very important.
And I just have to plug David and Stephanie on one thing. I was new to the board. Thank you, Jeff, for allowing me to be on the board, because Jeff was on my selection committee last year. My first board meeting, I was lost, a deer in headlights, no question about it. And one of the things that when Steph asked me about it, and she's going to be president this year, she said, how was your experience? I said, I was blind last July. That meeting after the thing, I was tired from the conference, didn't know what we were talking about, and I was just in the, and she said, you could probably change some stuff for the new members. Yeah. And so it's a conversation, a continual conversation. It's a continual growth. Will we make Jeff's experience a little bit better than mine? I hope so. Will we knock it out the park? I hope so. But if we miss, Jeff's going to give us some feedback again, and me being a little more seasoned member and Steph being the president, and we'll make another adjustment. And so that's what being on the board is about. It's about having that two-way conversation. Not just from the seats you're sitting in now, but then sitting at the table. Because I must tell you, it is a wonderful feeling that the 5 elected officers are also colleagues. So when we sit at the table, they're not sitting like way up here and we're down here. It's a conversation. We actually communicate and talk about serious business and issues and things that affect you guys as members and NACM as an organization. And that is very good and refreshing, because I know she noted about how sometimes they take calls and have to make quick decisions. But then we'll get an email blast saying, hey, we had this situation. Can everybody get on the calls, because we want to discuss what the action the executive officers had to take. That's refreshing. And then we filter it back through our committees to things where we're going about, here's what NACM's going to do. Because the bylaws and everything, that took a lot of work. The new core, we've been talking about it for a long time. The national agenda, it didn't just pop out of some secrecy. It's these, if you've been on calls, these are things that have been discussed for a series of time.
So I'm flipping through slides behind you, Dexter, but I think we've pretty much covered the general expectations. Does anybody have any questions just about expectations? Clear as mud. I'm sorry. Length of term. That's great.
Good one.
Yeah. So the directors, the 10 directors, are elected for a 3-year term. And then they have the option to run for the officer track. Each of the officer positions that I mentioned before are all 1-year terms. So then you get elected to each officer position until you get to president-elect. Like right now, I'm president-elect. I didn't have to go through the application and interview process, because the president-elect automatically slides into the president's spot. But that's the only automatic progression. Everyone else. And you can serve 2 terms as a board member? 2?
Better get up here. You cannot serve consecutive terms. So like technically I couldn't run again to serve, you have to have at least a year in between,
a
unless
year
you're
is
filling an
substitute.
expired term,
Yeah.
which
Right.
you can actually get a full term
That's
after
right.
that.
Which thank you for answering, because somebody asked me that question. Well, how long do you stay on the board? And yes, it's as
Feels like a
David-
lifetime.
So in the grand scheme of things, for everybody's benefit, I've been on the board since 2007, and I'm going off this year. So that's if you go through the full track, that's the length of time, 8 years from beginning to end.
But if you decide to run for a director position, you get elected to that 3-year term, you don't have to run for an officer spot. You can just run for the board. You can serve your 3-year term and say, thank you very much. I've had a great time, and I'm going off to do other things. So you don't have to run for the officer position, but you can. But if you run for the officer position, then it becomes an 8-year commitment of fun. Before you apply, we talked a lot about this too, joining a committee. That's the best way to get a feel for what NACM is all about and the workload and the time commitment. Is just to join the committee. You can hear things that people are working on, join the subcommittees. That's the best way to do it. And then, like Kevin said, discuss with with current board members, with past presidents. We're all very happy to talk with all of you about our experiences.
And I have one more input. Talk to your other members, because you'll never know who you're standing next to. You could be standing next to a past president. You could be standing next to a past board member. Feel free to talk to the people standing right around you, because most of the people that you see were sitting or thinking about doing what you're doing. There's a lot of past directors and officers or people have just been active in NACM a very long time. I was actually surprised when people said, you know, it's 30th year anniversary, and I've met so many people that said, well, I've been here for 29 of them. And I've seen these people the last 4 years at the conference and didn't know that they had been, I know we've talked, so I would just say talk amongst yourselves as well, because they have a lot of good information out there.
Yep. We tried to put down some qualities of successful board members, but you know, like Dexter was saying earlier, we all bring different things to the table, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and we try to really complement each other. One of the things that the biggest takeaway for me professionally has been just the management of people and projects. You know, I was a supervisor before I got on the NACM board, but it's a completely different level of management, especially when you're managing people that don't work for you. You're managing volunteers and you're managing projects that are going in different directions with people from all over the country. So it really does kind of step up your game a little bit in terms of project management and people management, motivating people, communication, public speaking. So if you're thinking about personal development, there's all kinds of different ways that you can grow as an individual through your service to NACM as well. So it's not necessarily how much NACM is going to suck out of you, right? Mm-hmm. But it's what NACM is putting back in as well. I mean, the skills that I have developed, I mean, before I took this position on the board, I had never chaired a conference call before. I had led in-person meetings, but I had never chaired a conference call. And as you can imagine, leading a conference call meeting is very different from an in-person meeting. So just developing that skill set and trying to figure out how you move the conversation along and move projects forward when most of your work is done by conference call is a completely different skill set that I was able to develop in my service as a board member. So just think about kind of all those intangible things that you can gain as a board member as well.
And just to chime in on that, I have my personality is who I am, but I am not the detail guy. Well, I have hosts and reporters. And you know these conferences don't happen without somebody sitting and hosting and reporting. And that's a detail. It's an important detail. So I'm developing my skills on details. That's why you guys got a lot of emails and a lot of requests. And so she's right about developing skills. And so it happens. It definitely happens.
And one of the other things that I wanted to point out, and this just occurred to me, my sister is here at the conference with me, and she serves on a local board that we have at home, and she was talking to me about my board service last night, and she said, you know, I don't do nearly the work that you do on my board. I see everything that you do on NACM, but I don't do nearly that level of work on my board. So I did want to point out that it is a hardworking board. When Kevin was president, he kept referring to the board as being on steroids. And we weren't really, but we do, I promise. Yeah, exactly. Caffeine, but no steroids. But we do work hard, and we produce results. So there are definitely outputs. And so as a board member, we're expected to produce deliverables. So it's not enough just to be on the conference call. It's not enough just to appear at the board meeting. You really have to be willing to accept responsibility for a project and commit to getting that project done and producing a deliverable. So that's, I think, kind of the biggest thing that I would like to emphasize. Just the comment that my sister made stuck in my mind, because she's like, I don't do any of that stuff that you do. So I just wanted to make sure that you all understood that there is a level of accountability with the deliverables that we do try to emphasize to our board members as well.
And I just got hit on this one more time about, and I know it concerns people about the time commitment. We also want quality. And so what might take Steph an hour to do, I might have to put in 3 hours. I'm going to be honest about it. I might have to put in 3 hours to get it to a level that I want to present to staff. You know, because that's how we work as a group. And so that's my personal time commitment to NACM and to you as a member. You know, I want to do right by the members as well. So I will put in that little extra if need be to make it what it needs to be. So just, you know, like I said, it's hard to put in 10 or 15 hours, but there's been times where it feels like I was doing NACM every day, you know, or on the weekend. So I just want to be clear about that it is a time commitment and there's an expectation of quality and, you know, in producing those results.
Questions? You're all scared to death now?
Go ahead.
My question would be for people that aren't here, really. I have 2 bosses that are in the organization here. Great job. Thank you for the information. But if I had to go back and they asked me, you know, what would you give me as the one reason why they should try to be a board member? Give me one reason, because that's what they're going to want from me.
Why they should allow you to be a board member?
No, them.
Well, they should.
I'm going to try to persuade them.
That's interesting.
It really has been an enriching experience for me professionally. So that's my biggest takeaway is the enrichment that I have experienced personally, and the fulfillment that I feel knowing that I'm able to give back to my profession. Like Dexter was saying at the beginning of the presentation, you know, when you realize that this is going to be your profession, this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, you really want to give back to that profession and contribute to the future. And so I think that is a huge bonus for me, just knowing that I've made an impact on the profession of court administration.
And I'll be honest, it was real simple for me. Once again, I did my research about who was the premier organization. I wanted more than just a job. And so the question you might want to ask them, are you an administrator? Are you in development of court management? Because there's a difference. And you know, it's about the roles and responsibilities of court. Are you serious about that role and responsibility of courts? The purpose of courts? You know, start asking those kind of questions. Or is it just a job? And if it is just a job, we have employees like that, and that's okay too. So then maybe that's not a good fit for them being a board member. But then again, there's work for people who just want to do some work too. So.
I just want to say, going off the board after these years of service, I'm sure the other past presidents in the room could say the same thing. It is personally and professionally gratifying to serve on this board. I look back 8 years ago, this organization is different than when I started. And I would like to think that my contributions to the association helped make it better for our profession going forward, and for those of you that are attending and a part of the association now. And there is something that is extremely gratifying personally to feel like, even if I'm never recognized for that, I feel like I was able to make a contribution that made our profession better. And that's, to me, that's what it's all about. So, you know, it sort of jazzes you up whenever you get to do that. Yeah. So, you know, and it also, the other thing I would say is it sometimes will break the monotony. I mean, sometimes being a court administrator, or, you know, in your position, sometimes it gets really monotonous and old, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to go do this again. And NACM gives you an output to really be able to do some pretty incredible things at a national level, and it's really gratifying. I would encourage you all to give it very serious consideration, because from a personal level and a professional level, it's gratifying. And I think the other thing I would say too is there's nowhere else where you're going to be on the leading edge of learning everything that's going on at the national level than when you're at the NACM board meeting. You hear everything that's going on cutting edge. You're going to hear it first. And you know, you take that back to your court, and then you look like you're the smartest guy on the planet, because you're talking about stuff, and then they hear about it 2 weeks later, and they're like, "Whoa, didn't you just tell me about that?" So it's really a gratifying experience, and it's 100% worth all the commitments that you have to make towards NACM.
And I think one last point, chiming in on what David just said too, the most enlightening thing too is it's self-fulfilling. You wake up feeling good about what you did, but you are so enlightened about the different things that are going on nationally. And for me, it keeps me thinking about tomorrow, because I want electronic filing. I don't have one yet, but boy, I'm going to find you later on and talk about it. And so that excitement about what your court can be and what that next step might be for you is always exciting for me. And being able to have that opportunity of being in the room with individuals who are at different places. So
now you've got both Kevin and Dexter running after you. Any other questions? I hope we gave you a good sense of what it's all about, and I hope we made you excited and want to join, or want to coerce other people into joining. Well, thank you for attending. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you around the conference.